You're listening to the Telltale channel. Don't forget to check me out on all social media: Patreon, Twitter, Teespring, and Etsy. All links can be found in the description or on my website, telltaleatheist.com. Last week, I talked about New York Governor Andrew Cuomo trying to slow the spread of the virus by limiting gatherings again. The Orthodox Jewish community completely lost their shit over it. And of course, activist mommy came to their defense. What a stupid thing to get upset about. Seriously. As if they can't meet over Zoom during a worldwide pandemic. Why can't they do things the safe way? Why do they insist on dying on this hill? Maybe even literally. Eleanor Roosevelt said something interesting about freedom. She said, quote, "Freedom makes a huge requirement of every human being. With freedom comes responsibility. For the person who's unwilling to grow up, the person who does not want to carry his own weight, this is a frightening prospect." End quote. Humanity once enjoyed a perfectly and completely free society. At one point in human history, we did, until idiots started appearing. Wow, he just killed that guy. We can't have that. Limit everybody's freedoms to prevent that from happening. Everybody is a little less free now because some jerk-off killed a guy. If he hadn't done that, the option would still be on the table. I mean, seriously, think about this. Every law that's on the books, we paid for in blood. Don't want to be forced by the government to drive sober? If you don't like the government shoving its way into your life, then you have to act in a responsible way, so there's no reason for the laws to exist. The driving laws are a direct result of irresponsible idiots. You don't want the government regulating where you're allowed to store nuclear waste? Well, one company came in and fucked it up for everybody by storing it next to the employee break room. Now, a bunch of people have radiation poisoning. Don't want the government to force you to wear a mask? Then be safe and responsible and wear a fucking mask when it's in the best interest of you and the people around you. Freedom comes with responsibility. You're free to do anything you want until it affects my life. When you don't show respect for my rights, the government has to come in and force the issue. If you want to live in a more free society, then be more responsible and don't violate other people's rights. A while back, Lance Wallnau, an extreme right-wing pastor, claimed that Satan was using Kamala Harris to, quote-unquote, take Trump out. He's a complete nutcase. Well, he's back in the news for praying to God that he doesn't allow Trump to get ingloriously beaten on Election Day, quote-unquote. If you're wondering why I'm talking about this guy, it's because he represents the evangelical voting bloc. Him, Robert Jeffress, Kenneth Copeland, and a bunch of others. If you want to know how the evangelical voting bloc is dealing with somebody who's been through multiple divorces, had an affair with a film star, and says the fuck word constantly, and even makes fun of evangelicals, this is the guy you want to listen to. Let's listen to a clip from his recent service.
Father, in the name of Jesus, we believe that you're going to have mercy on America, that the goat nations indeed will be there, but sheep nations are rising. This is the hour when sheep nations are rising. I believe Mike Pompeo has unfinished business with the nations. I believe Donald Trump has unfinished business in the nations. And I believe you will not let someone who has stood with Israel and stood with Christians, you will not let them be ingloriously beaten and embarrassed by your enemies, because your name is part of this, Lord. What will the heathens say? What will the radicals say? What will the communists say when someone who stands with you so conspicuously does not have a friend in high places watching over them? But I believe you are going to watch over this president.
He's basically integrated politics seamlessly into his sermons. This is what a fascist country looks like, in case you were wondering. This is what it looks like. Religion and politics are inextricably linked. An anti-LGBT group had some interesting things to say the other day. The group is called the National Organization for Marriage. Let's see what they said. Quote, "When the U.S. Supreme Court illegitimately redefined marriage in 2015 with their anti-constitutional ruling on the Obergefell case, NOM vowed to work every day to overturn that decision. People said we were crazy to think that was possible. We were mocked and ridiculed by LGBT activists for even suggesting that the Supreme Court would ever reverse their ruling imposing gay marriage. Regardless, NOM pressed on, and now the supposedly unthinkable is clearly within sight. They don't think we're crazy any longer." End quote. If you weren't concerned about politics before, then you should be now. We might have society on our side, but it doesn't really matter. Right-wing extremists have the government on their side. The Amy Coney Barrett nomination could seriously end gay marriage. If you're a member of the LGBT community, then I would recommend you get married now before it's too late. Oh, and fucking vote, please. For the love of everything good, just do it. Kat Kerr, famed Christian prophetess, in her words, was on the YouTube channel Elijah Streams the other day. 31,000 subscribers. The video has 112,000 views when this was recorded. So she isn't small. She isn't unknown. Well, she had some wacky things to say. Is that the right word? Here's what she said. Quote, I could draw God because of my photographic memory, but I think one of the greatest experiences I've ever had was when Jesus introduced me to his Father, and Jesus himself gave me a commission to reveal the Father himself. What he's like, the things he says, what his heart is on things. He definitely has white hair, but it's got life in it. It's like it moves, and I'll never forget that I touched it one time when I was there. It's like life jumped into my entire being. His eyes are like, you can barely see his eyes because of the glory coming out. End quote. Well then, this lady is obviously a complete nutbag, but like I said before, she's famous. She isn't a bit player in this. She represents the evangelical movement too. If you want to get an idea of how they think, look to people like this. Remember all those character flaws I mentioned about Trump earlier? I mean, I don't necessarily see them as character flaws. I don't care one way or another. Not really the choices I'd personally make. Getting divorced 15 times, sleeping with film stars, saying the fuck word constantly. That stuff is supposed to matter to Christians. They present themselves as moral authorities, even though they've been dragged into the new age, kicking and screaming on basically every major social issue, like slavery. Well, Pastor Shane Idleman feels that all those charges against Trump are invalid. Let's see what he said about it. Quote, the upcoming election is causing increased division among Christians. It leaves many people confused when some Christians denounce Trump and elevate Biden. Their reasoning goes something like this. How can you vote for Trump based on his character? But the real question we should be asking is, what direction is the country heading, spiritually speaking? Obviously, character is important, but if a man has decent character according to some, yet he believes in infanticide and euthanizing the disabled, do we look at his character over his policies? Of course not. I don't want to hear about someone's character when they think it's okay to kill a child, even at 9 months, and they reject the Born Alive bill. I'm not concerned with nice tweets when they promote real hate, support sexual perversion, and want to burn down our cities, and on it goes. End quote. Well, first of all, I have to say, all of that is a complete mischaracterization of what the Democrat Party fights for. I have never heard those suggestions from Democrat leadership. And second, having Trump in office normalizes all that bad behavior they claim to hate so much. So I'm not sure what they're expecting, but I'll tell you what'll happen. Trump is going to continue to act like a moral monster, at least in their eyes, and it's going to move the moral Overton window further and further away from the values they claim to hold dear. They're shooting themselves in the foot. Why? Because they're cult members.